I'm going to clap on this one. I'll have you guys clap on that one. So. There we go. That what? You only need one per camera.
This isn't really necessary, but
it's gratuitous. Let's go.
Speaking of gratuitous,
we can't get into the episode that soon.
No.
It is, a free gift to all of you.
Indeed. Yes.
That is our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We don't make you pay for it.
Nope. Nor do we feel like going through the effort of figuring out how we would even monetize this in the first place.
Like Patreon.
Well, right, but I mean,
we'd have to have patrons to have a Patreon.
Exactly.
We have to have an audience to have patrons.
Right. So we have 2 listeners.
Yeah. Who
As
we do
always
for
have.
free.
Always have, always.
Per omnia secula seculorum.
Mm-hmm. And
forever
and ever. But we enjoy it. That's really payment of itself.
It's just really an opportunity to sit with the bros and discuss a thing, which is the kind of conversation we would have normally unless we didn't schedule time to have visits like this, which
Yep.
I like having scheduled visits with you guys. I like hanging out.
Yeah, the male urge to sit beneath professional lighting and in front of a camera to have a conversation with the boys.
Have you seen that meme circulating where it's like women are entering the trades at all-time high rates, and they're like, yeah, well, the men are too busy making podcasts, so somebody's got to do it. And here we are contributing to that.
In one age, we went off to war. In this age, we went off to podcast.
If I don't come back, tell my wife I love her.
Yeah.
You
can tell her that
from
yourself.
The podcast.
You can tell her that yourself with this uploads in 3 days.
No, you can go without me.
Stay with me. Keep your feet alive, man. Mike's dying.
I was looking back through the backlog
Oh, yes.
of episodes earlier today to ascertain whether we had done what we're going to do today, or we're running back a topic we've already talked about, but a later part of that. And I don't think we have. I went through most of
I know
the
we've
episodes.
revisited things in chunks.
Yeah, I proposed it with to the best of my knowledge, we consumed this portion earlier this year.
Well, no, we did that. Did we talk? What did we record? Did we do an episode with Isaac on My Hero?
We did. No, not with Isaac, but we did one.
We did one.
We haven't
just from the first 4 seasons.
My guy.
We haven't yet revisited My Hero.
It's not since 5 and 6 is still coming out. We could do that
Yeah,
eventually.
I think we had planned to, but this would be the first time.
This is the first time we have done a
revisit
later
update.
Segment of something we've already covered.
Because we've done a couple of sequels before.
Yeah, like we did the Guardians 3.
Well, we did we did the trilogy, or the first 2 as a duology. Mm-hmm. We didn't do 3 yet, which 3's good.
Didn't we?
No, we didn't.
I don't think
talk
so.
about 3. I don't know if you've seen 3.
I have not.
Maybe we talked about it.
We talked about it personally, and
Yeah.
we haven't recorded our conversation talking about it.
Something tells me we did. Now
I
need to
went and
verify
looked
this.
through.
You did?
This is such great content, guys. We're
It could have been
scrolling through our phone.
it
The
could-
meta content.
I'm pretty sure.
I thought I had just had it in my mind that we had, and
We might have just said we in a banter section.
I just went through 50 something episodes. Not spoilers, bro.
You gotta blur that in the video form of the podcast and the audio form of the podcast because we don't want any spoilers.
Yes, we have to visually blur it in the audio form
Exactly.
of the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I think we probably talked about Guardians 3 in a intro section at some point.
Mentioned
Right.
that we had watched it and said, yeah, it's good.
But we never covered it.
As its own standalone topic. Yeah, that sounds right.
Just
Breaking new ground.
talking about things we haven't talked
147
about
episodes in.
What's that?
Doing something new, 147 episodes in.
Yep.
We got to keep it fresh.
Yep. We gotta keep the train chugging along.
Call us Subway because we're
um,
keeping you eating fresh.
Every, month and a half that we record
Yeah.
these days.
It's gonna take us years to get to 200 podcasts at this rate.
Another observation I had is that we recorded around 20 episodes in the last year.
That's pretty good.
Which is more than I thought it was going to be, honestly.
Yeah. Well, especially considering since you've been back from seminary, I think, right? We've recorded 20 episodes, which is
A bit more than that.
feels like more than because of how the big chunks of time in between.
We did it weekly for a bit. We did large time skips.
Yeah.
But it probably averages out to one every other week if you spread it out.
Yeah,
more or less.
We started in early 2020. So if you do that, 4 years, 225 is what we would be at if we did it.
If we did every week. Yeah.
ish. So,
And then even then we took breaks for holidays and things like that.
so honestly, 60%. Not
That's
bad.
Pretty good success rate.
52 weeks times the 4 years we've been doing this.
4.5.
Four and a
at this
half?
point.
So 52 times 4, that's 200 something. Add the other 25 weeks. So
Right.
yeah. So we're not doing,
We're chugging
not
quite
doing
a
too
lot.
bad.
At this point, it's easier to keep going than to not.
I mean,
Almost.
That's definitely not true.
Okay,
No.
that's
It's
takes
an uphill
energy.
battle to
yeah.
get these podcasts on the schedule these days.
Yeah. I will say, in terms of situation, we've finally gotten the studio space to a point where it's comfortable to record. Because when we first started the podcast in the old basement, we had the space, it was just very awkwardly arranged the way we had it.
We could all sit around one table.
Mhm.
I actually kind of like that arrangement.
Yeah. Although it was incredibly difficult to put anything besides the soundboard on top of that thing.
It's true.
But
It was inconvenient though.
mhm.
I had to lug that desk out from the corner where it sat into the middle of the room.
Yeah. But so far, yeah, this is probably my favorite iteration. It's much better than having to unhook and drag my computer out to the
That was
living room every single
probably a
week.
significant contributor to why we didn't record very much.
Yes, I was just I
In
don't want
those
to take
days.
It
my
was a
computer.
rigmarole for sure.
I don't want to unhook my computer and carry it to the living room right now. Well, and you were living at Duncan's too, so that was another thing we had to sort of line up. But we have persevered through all of the trials and tribulations, so we can keep the same two people entertained. So you're welcome.
The same audience of two.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I only just uploaded the last episode yesterday as of recording this.
Uh-huh.
Last couple weeks were crazy.
I like the title.
Yeah, thank you. The post-apocalypse vibe seemed like it called for it.
Yes.
But yeah, let's see. What have we been up to? It has been 2 weeks since the last episode,
Well, now if you're going to date this, but
as of recording.
yeah, as of recording.
And probably by the time it will have released, it will be 2 weeks. So in reality, 4 weeks from the mentioned time,
of
if it takes me
recording.
as long to edit and upload the last podcast as it did this. Yeah.
I mean, I think keeping the output consistent and steady
Yep.
would be a good thing. So lining them up like that, now that you've got one locked in, having this one to match the cadence
Yeah.
would just be the best thing to do.
Here on Blade and Papist, we do inside baseball and synopsises of things you already know about with a little bit of commentary as a treat.
Update the Twitter bio to that when you get around to ever logging into Twitter. Which you don't.
I, as of the recording of this, made a post last night with the link to the podcast, which after reviewing found that I hadn't changed the title slide yet from the previous episode because I just copied and pasted. I'm like, do I care enough to fix this? Maybe.
No. Probably
Only two
not.
people have watched it, and I'm pretty sure both of those are me. So I could probably get away with it. Who's got time for that?
Clearly not us.
No.
Certainly not I.
But I'd say while we're on this inside baseball screed, we it is all the more enjoyable when we do get to sit down and chat.
Absolutely.
It's like, yes, finally, it's out of the busyness. We get to do stuff.
Speaking of inside
Together.
baseball, James, you went through you remembered to set up the timer.
But you didn't start it. All right, what? How long has the episode been running to this point? So we can
10 minutes.
10 minutes plus. Okay. Add 10 to the timer.
There we go.
Noted.
There we go.
Well, what have we been doing besides talking about the podcast for the last 2 weeks?
We have done nothing but talk about the podcast for the last
Positively.
2 weeks straight.
Not at all. Not even a bit.
I've been playing Elden Ring.
How's that been going?
I,
As a From Software
as
game
a
enjoyer.
FromSoft enjoyer, I am enjoying it. It ticks all the boxes and does some things differently. I've kind of gotten used to the open world bit of it, which I did not like at first because I very much enjoy the tight, well-sequenced, everything matters. Like, it's easy to work your way through the dungeons and the areas and say, okay, I'm pretty confident that I have found everything there is to find here. Whereas Elden Ring is like, I could spend hundreds of hours in this and not find everything there is to find, and I kind of just have to accept that because I do not have time as an adult.
Well, plus that gives you replay value, or revisit
I am
value.
not gonna replay Elden Ring
Well, I mean,
anytime soon.
How many things are just out there, regardless of how? Like, if you were to reload your game save at a future
I
date,
suppose.
because I did that a little bit with Red Dead Redemption 2. There was some things that I didn't complete that I came back like 4 years later. No, it was 3 years later and completed this summer. Also being an open world game. So maybe there's some stuff like that where you can go back and polish some stuff off after you've had a break.
And have you purchased the Shadow of Erdtree DLC for
I
it?
have not yet.
I have no idea where that fits in, but apparently bosses are hard. But then again, it's FromSoft. That's a given.
FromSoft. They apparently do a bit of a soft reset on you when you do the DLC.
Oh, sure.
And you have to collect fragments to regain percentages of your power. So that's kind of new and interesting.
That's a different approach, yeah.
They slap you with the Symphony of the Night. Because beginning of Symphony of the Night, after the whole Richter Belmont flashback bit, you're like, you're Alucard running around in Dracula's castle, and you got a cool sword, you got a cool shield, you got all the cool stuff, and then Death shows up and slaps you and says, your dad is grounding you, I'm taking your toys. And so it's like, you have a taste of how cool you're going to be later when you get all your stuff back. But now you're back to level 1 to
Kind of like
play
in
the game.
Tears of the Kingdom, where you're
Kind of like
fully
Tears of the
powered Link.
Kingdom, kind of like Metroid Prime, any number of these games where it's like you have an established character that is fully powered up by the end of the last game or at the end of your main quest, and you got to find some way to humble them, or else you're just going to go in overpowered, and that will be fun in a way that's less rewarding.
Sure, yeah.
Because, like, being overpowered and blasting the crap out of everything in one shot is just, that's fun. It's a fun power fantasy, but it's better when it's earned, you know?
How would you rank Elden Ring with the other FromSoft games you've played so far? I mean, incomplete, because you haven't finished the game yet.
I have not really had a chance to absorb a lot of the lore, and that is something that I will need to watch Vati videos, of course, to absorb more of, because I sure don't have time to sift through all that. And there's
See our
so
Bloodborne.
much more going on in Elden Ring.
See our Bloodborne episode.
Or Dark Souls. Or
or, yeah.
Bloodborne
3.
was one of those that I could kind of think through on my own.
As you were going through it.
It's just a little bit tighter and
More
there's
accessible.
less happening in the world.
Well, because there's more world and it's thin, stretched like butter scraped across too much bread. For another Ring reference.
Like chocolate pudding scraped across too much ham.
Oh, Lord of the Beans.
Yeah.
Good old.
I had
good old
that-
Tales.
That I forget which scene exactly, but that sort of popped into my head the other day recently. It's just been on the brain.
That particular episode.
Lord of the Beans, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff.
Well, speaking of popping into our heads,
Where the
say
plating
th-
page is I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
and I'm Riley.
What a moment for my mind to go blank.
I was just like, way to say the thing,
Popping into our heads, James.
Yes.
not out of our heads.
I was about to go off on a zombie tangent, like cranberries. But then I was like, that wouldn't really work.
The
And
point is, we're doing a
Super
a
Serial.
Super Serial today.
about Mob Psycho Season 3. So, as long-windedly referred to at the beginning of this episode, we are revisiting a show. Since at the time we recorded, we didn't know, I don't think, that there would be another season.
I believe I mentioned something to the effect of, I was pretty sure the show was done.
Mm-hmm.
But me being a non-manga reader did not know that there was more stuff to go through.
Yeah.
And
And
it kind
possibly
of
more
makes-
from here.
Possibly, but it feels
Honestly, they-
somewhat concluded.
Like Toy Story 3, where it really could be done. Probably should be, but may not be.
I mean, he's still got One Punch Man to continue doing so.
It's the same.
It's the
Same
same
guy.
guy.
Gotcha.
You can tell because Saitama
Oh, the
is just
animation
mob but
style.
bald.
Yeah. Yeah, now that you mention it. Maybe that would give me a reason to watch One Punch Man because I really enjoy the animation in Mob Psycho.
Yeah.
But
So there's two main arcs in this season, but we should probably just basic premise. You've got Mob, who's this middle school kid who's got ridiculous psychic powers, who is working for a consultancy agency called Spirits and Such Consultancy, run by a man named Reagan, who is his mentor, his teacher, and
kind of a huckster.
kind of a con artist who, has all the people skills and all the fancy show,
But no
none
power.
of the power, which is why he has Mob.
But his power is getting people to like him and listen to him.
Right, his power is he's got people skills. Mm-hmm. Last couple seasons, they went through several arcs of him learning to deal with his powers and control his emotions and his relationships and stuff.
Setting off a mushroom cloud that turns into a giant broccoli.
Right. In the final confrontation with the evil organization of
Psychic
people,
Mm-hmm.
one of which is now working at the
Oh, yeah,
consultancy.
Umbrella guy.
Umbrella guy.
Series
Sarazawa.
Serizawa, yeah.
So there's two main arcs. The first arc is the Psycho Helmet cult arc,
Yep.
right? Mm-hmm. Because
Through a
this-
misunderstanding of Mob's appearance, they think his bowl haircut is a helmet of some sort, and he's a powerful psychic. So he is sort of a prophetic / deified figure.
well, he's the cause of the giant broccoli that appeared in downtown Seasoning City, and everyone is making a pilgrimage to it, like it's some kind of
Holy sight.
holy site, dedicated to the Psycho Helmet figure.
Yep.
You got some people who, obviously Reagan knows what's up and Mob knows what's up. There's a couple other people at the school who suspect him. But then before he can announce it, yeah, I'm the guy who made the broccoli thing. Another guy shows up and says, "Hello, I am Psycho Helmet. I am not a plant puppet thing puppeted by a recurring character in this series. I am Psycho Helmet. Join me."
The ghost Dimple, the spirit Dimple, who had previously possessed a bunch of people and had them start a cult before, does it again. But he wanted Mob to lead the charge, but Mob said, "No, I'm not interested in that. I like girls." And so now he's like, "Fine, I'll do it myself." And so he makes a broccoli man puppet and leads the cult. And apparently all the belief in the cult has caused a huge buildup of psychic power in the giant broccoli, and things start to get pretty out of hand, and people are getting possessed by eating broccoli products, and pretty soon, Mob is the only one left in the city who's not under the spell of the broccoli and Psycho Helmet. So Mob walks over there to see what's up. The other hair boy gets into a fight and ends up becoming overtaken by Broccoli Puppet. And it turns out it's just Dimple hiding in the broccoli, absorbing, excuse me, a bunch of psychic energy to become super powerful. Him and Mob get into a fight. Mob realizes, like, wait a minute, you just wanted to be my friend. Okay, let's be friends now. And doesn't fight back.
Fight you.
Mm-hmm. And then the broccoli gets a mind of its own, and so Dimple turns around and fights the broccoli and throws it into space. And Mob got a bunch of power siphoned out of him, so he blacks out. And then nobody really remembers that the broccoli was a thing, and everything goes back to normal.
Yep. There's a couple other arcs. There are like episodes. There's like a marathon. There's getting abducted by aliens randomly.
That was such a weird. The one guy was just missing for a year, and they forgot about him.
He becomes the king of the
just absolute crap tier animation that I'm still not sure if it was intentional.
Yeah, it was quite a disjoint. It was an episode.
So, some stuff happened in the middle, but then you got the ending arc with.
In typical Mob Psycho fashion, this is the real meat.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, earlier in the show, it was established that Mob has a crush on a girl in his class named Tsubomi.
Somebody he's known since he was very little.
Yes. And he, showed her his psychic powers as a kid, but she didn't treat him as, a weirdo or any different. She didn't pay him much attention at all, in point of fact, but he doesn't know that.
A girl who was very popular at school and has literally lines around the block of boys trying to ask her on dates.
Once it's announced that she's going to a different high school, everyone's taking their last chance to ask her out, and everyone's getting rejected. And Mob is like, well, maybe Mob wants to have...
We're childhood friends. Maybe I have an inside track.
Mm-hmm. So he works up the courage, buys flowers, asks her to meet him at the park, and he starts walking there and gets hit by a car in the crosswalk.
Trying to he pushes another kid out of the way who was going to be hit.
Mm-hmm.
And this sets off basically all the pent-up rage and aggression personified in...
psychic powers.
Yeah, psychic powers. Mob goes psycho. And nobody can get through to him. None of his friends, none of his former enemies. He is on an absolute tear through the city, paving a giant path of destruction and making a psychic tornado go through the city.
Also, he can get to the park with his flowers intact.
Mm-hmm.
Because the flowers weren't intact, but he used his psychic powers to put them back together.
Because they represent all of his romantic hopes and dreams. And Mob, inside of his own mind, isn't even fully in control of what's going on. Or is he?
Well, yes, but actually no.
Well,
but actually yes.
But actually, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Parts.
Yeah.
Human beings psychologically exist in parts. And they show that.
Yep. Right now, the anger part is taking over his body.
Not just the anger part. The just
fear of
desire...
rejection.
The passion, the base, I want, I need parts of him. Whereas the upper rational parts that were, subduing his powers, trying to hold himself back to
repressing
not hurt people and all these things, not weird people out. The part repressing the lower level emotions and abilities is now the one being repressed.
And this is probably dipping the toe into the analysis portion of it a little bit, but this lack of integration is causing catastrophically destructive outward expression, shall we say. Finally, Reagan manages to, with the help of returning from space Dimple, literally get through to Mob, despite getting kind of beat up. And tries to talk some sense into him.
Well, but what ends up just happening that ultimately works is Reagan apologizes
for being a fraud.
Being a fraud. And having a part of himself that he hid away from everyone else. And he wants to be his friend to be Mob's friend. He wants to show him his vulnerabilities. You can't integrate, you can't be friends if you don't reveal things about yourself to other people.
And Mob sort of reveals in this that he knew the whole time that Reagan was a fake and just kind of played along.
Because it's kind of obvious.
But kind of resents him for it, apparently, like that he wasn't aware of until he started destroying the city.
It's funny what you're not aware of until you talk to people and let your emotions out.
Yep. Or your emotions will let themselves out.
But ultimately, over the course of this, he calms down. They have a good heart-to-heart. And then Tsubomi's still waiting at the park, despite the entire city being evacuated on lockdown because of the psychic tornado that drove through there, like maiming hundreds. Mm-hmm. And he goes up, shoots his shot, gets rejected.
After all that,
but he's like, you know what? He's good. He's good with it.
Mm-hmm. This stings, but I'll be okay. He is a well-integrated person with self-respect.
He becomes more integrated than he was to begin with.
Yeah.
Who's to say whether he's totally integrated?
True.
They might want
All
to squeeze
around.
a fourth season out of this.
Yeah. That has been sort of the theme of the show with the first two seasons, is how to become a properly integrated person. I think that's what we talked about in our last episode.
But with that, that's the meat of what happens, or the broad strokes, I should say.
So let's talk about like the really substantial portion, the alien abduction episode.
What did it represent that he was taken away and made like the king of
What
this
truth,
alien
goodness, and
species?
beauty can we find in these aliens? And
I mean, ultimately, it was that whole episode was like them.
the one guy
trying
tripping
to-
alien acid and becoming the king.
Well, it was trying to make a connection with a friend that they were taking for granted.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the whole point
Yep.
of that episode. Because there's the one friend who was in the UFO club that there's only like 3 members of because they just wanted a place where they could kick back and play their DS.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were such a small club, they had to share a room with the Body Improvement Club that
Oh, yeah.
Mob was part of.
Yep.
And I think it's funny how everybody shows up during the final arc, and even the Body Improvement Club try and stop Mob.
Yep.
And, you know, they try to get through to him, and it kind of works for a little bit, but then he hardens and keeps going the way that climaxes tend to be.
Yep. And then Hairboy also puts up a valiant effort to get through to Mob. Saves some people from being caught up in the destruction
Has all of his clothes blown up
for some reason.
because
But I forget, did he still have the bald spot from his
Uh,
previous fight with Mob?
he became bald again.
Okay.
I think he grew all his hair back legit, but the fight made him bald again.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and then there was sort of the theme of the monkey shirt.
Yep. The expressing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
even if yourself.
Even
As
if
a
everybody is
tacky
like,
monkey
what
shirt.
on earth are you wearing? That looks awful. So, yeah, I guess, what do we like about Mob Psycho Season 3?
it very much continues in the vein of what made the first 2 seasons good.
Very
Not
cool
so,
animation.
Not so very cool animation, some interesting fight scenes, weird zany first two thirds, and
Very
like
character driven, and the characters are fun and colorful.
Mm-hmm.
and a very hype, big catastrophic fight back third,
Mm-hmm.
where you kind of get to some of the more substantial themes that the work has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
So it continues in its pattern. It stays consistent,
Mm-hmm.
which is always good.
Because I remember you at first were not like a huge fan of season 3, but then like as we were rewatching it, you were sort of coming around on it some more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just like, this is just One Punch Man
Mm-hmm.
for the first half of it. And then it kind of grew on me. I knew what they were going for in the first place, but it hit me differently the second time. It was... Dimple just wants to be loved and wants to have friends,
And
and
the way he expresses that is by being this,
Manipulative and literally
he
controlling.
wants to be worshipped like a god of some kind, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what he really wants is a genuine connection. All of the false, fake mind controlling he could ask for is not going to fill the void in his heart.
He's sort of a classic narcissist.
Yeah.
in as much as anyone is a narcissist,
Right.
because narcissists
Beneath
are
all
really
of
just
that-
self-affirmed persons who
Right.
need to be affirmed by other people and to recognize that they need to be affirmed by other people.
How many narcissists does it take to change a light bulb? None. They use gaslighting.
That's really good.
I came across that earlier today, and I was like, "Oh, I have to repeat that before I forget it." So that was my opportunity.
Well, now it's been immortalized into the podcast.
You're welcome. After it was immortalized on social media, and I encountered it.
Yes.
But yes. Anyway, yeah. And Mob, in his insightfulness, that happens in spurts. He recognizes that in Dimple. And instead of getting big mad and getting into huge psychic battle, like he has done on a lot of occasions, he realizes, like, hold on a minute.
Let's de-escalate this a bit.
Yeah.
But also he had
Much to Dimple's
annoyance.
Sugar.
being flummoxed by the whole situation.
Well, the other half of that too is that Mob was going through a bit of a self-important arc at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Parallel to that, there was some stuff in school where he was being recognized as he was getting popular,
Yeah.
and suddenly his face changes to be this weird chiseled.
He turns into handsome Squidward.
Right, whenever he's like, "I'm popular." So like he was getting a little full of himself, getting more popular than he was before.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that approval from others, but also feeling hollow about it, he recognized that in Dimple because that's all he's ever had.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that. It was an insight that came through self-reflection.
Right. Yeah, and that sort of makes Dimple kind of turn the corner on his own self-absorption. Well, not self-absorption, but self-affirmation, and how that's sort of led him down the wrong path.
Mm-hmm.
And he realizes, like, okay, so my friendship with Mob is an opportunity for me to come outside of myself. And he sort of, in a way, sacrifices himself. At least this, he gives up this enormous power he has to fight off the giant broccoli and send it into space to help Mob out.
Yes.
So he does something selfless.
Because turns
He
out
does something loving.
Yes.
Because it turns out, kids, you were right all the time. Broccoli isn't good for you.
Gosh, the part where everybody's just eating these the broccoli products and just slowly turning into brainwashed broccoli zombies.
And like there was a couple episodes of setup where like, ooh, psychic things are happening around the city at greater intervals. Wonder why that could be. 'Cause it's not like
There's giant roots all over the place, like in the rumor weed.
Mob Psycho in the room.
That's the episode title right there.
Have you heard the one about Mob Psycho helmet?
Yes. And telling the truth is what leads to this one being defeated.
Sometimes people just need nice words.
Mm-hmm. He's not a robot. Other things we liked about season 3?
That was a lot of the first half kind of cool stuff analysis.
Yeah. Second half. Anger.
I can feel your
This is what happens when you don't allow your emotions to speak.
Years of pent-up rage and aggression.
or at the very least, just frustration with both himself and everyone around him for.
Because when there's a tendency amongst more accommodating people to allow other people to have their way to the point where you build up resentments that you don't even recognize yourself, and that's kind of the case for Mob in season 3. That all comes to a head, and the very act of saving somebody else's life, putting his dreams in danger and his very life, causes that everything to come to a head and snap when he least expects it.
And also the physical trauma probably didn't help. Going a little Hulk mode.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very insightful way to show how, like, what the consequences of disintegration.
Mm-hmm.
When a person doesn't allow all the parts of themselves to speak to one another, to have intercommunication, because that's what integration really is. Like, it's a buzzword we throw around a lot in the Catholic world, but what does that actually mean? It wasn't until the Propedeutic year that I found a satisfying definition. It's like, when you're integrated, you allow all the parts of yourself to talk to each other. They're all included.
Mm-hmm.
When you're disintegrated, there's a part that's exiled. There's something that's sent away and not spoken to, that's treated as if it's not there. And it continues to exist. It is affected by the things that go on in your life, but it doesn't allow the rest of you to talk to it, or rather the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
All the rest of your parts don't get to speak or interact with it. And eventually that all comes to a head when you hit a traumatic event. That all comes out and you end up hurting people that you care about, often really badly. And you don't understand it. You're just like, why did I do that? I can't fathom. That seems out of nowhere. This is so beyond, this isn't me.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sense, it's true. Like, there's a concept called internal family systems that counselors will often use. And this is kind of an exile in the internal family systems framework.
You see in Mob, like, his meek, like, he's generally sort of a mild-mannered, meek, soft-spoken person, but that has come about in a huge part due to sort of banishing the anger and other parts of himself.
And his psychic powers.
Everything about his psychic powers,
which are really just an analog for his emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the first 2 seasons, every time he would feel a big emotion, there would be a big psychic event, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a build-up with his, there's a meter, there's like a percentage that gradually increases as he, goes through stressful things. And when it hits 100, that big psychic event occurs.
And whatever that big feeling is associated with the trauma or the event, whether it's, anger or trust or sadness, whatever it is, it overflows.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, there's something deeper that has been slowly ticking up this whole time. Something resentful, something determined to be noticed on its own terms. Because, ultimately, he just wants to be seen. This whole journey is for him going to meet a girl he likes. He wants to be noticed by her. But ultimately what snaps him out of it is Reagan making a connection, seeing through to his core and revealing something about his core, that person-to-person connection.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to be seen. And it was built up for so long that it snapped.
Mm-hmm.
And is so powerful that it overpowers everything else. He has a bit of a dialogue there with the anger part of himself as it's rampaging, towards the park, and he can't get through to it because
He's like, this is I don't know what outside force this is that's controlling me. And he's like, I'm you, basically. Like, this is as much part of you as anything else. Like, sort of confronts him and forces him to accept that part of himself.
And it's only the acceptance that allows him to move forward and do what he desires to do, which is not hurt a bunch of people.
Mm.
Being a doormat is not a good way to live.
No. And it's unsustainable. Eventually, something is going to force your anger out of you.
It indicates an incomplete self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lack of acceptance of other people's love for you.
And it's interesting that one by one, like you see all the people who have accepted Mob, like I think, do his club friends show up? I forget.
Yeah,
Because there's the Body Improvement Club guys
his brother
show up.
shows up.
Yeah.
Hairboy. What
Hanazawa.
Hanazawa
shows up, yeah.
Even like some of the bad guys from the first couple of seasons get like pulled from prison and dropped into the psychic war zone.
And they recognize that, like, what Mob did for them. The one guy, because the broccoli was created when Mob acted as like a channel to suck all this guy's crazy psychic power out of him. And he recognizes that Mob, in a weird way, gave him a second lease on life and understanding like the damage he did to his family. So he has kind of a moment with his son and all that. But yeah, one by one, like all these people he's impacted or have been accepted by try to get through to him,
but get hurt.
Yeah.
So like, not only does it show that how many people he's touched and how much he cares, but also just shows how
he's built up a little bit of resentment for each of them.
A little bit.
That he didn't really recognize.
But even if he doesn't, he's not like trying to hurt them. He's trying to do something entirely unrelated. They just happen to get caught in the crossfire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else from season that we haven't yet discussed.
That was the big climax. So there's a lot of little stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Aliens.
Yeah. Like the aforementioned monkey shirt. I don't know what that represents for Mob.
Well, here's the thing.
It seems like in the first half of the season that he has like sort of reached this new stage in life. He's becoming popular. Kind of he's expressing himself. He's
trying new things. He's not really kind of just existing in his uniform all the time like he has before. He's trying to individuate, trying to become his own person, understand who he is.
It seems like he's on a good track, and then he gets hit by a car and everything blows up.
The monkey shirt in particular, it's something that he and a friend went out and bought because they're trying to dress fancy, try new styles. And nobody comments on it because they're all like, well, that's weird, but I don't want to embarrass the kid. So, yeah, cool, Bob. Keep it up.
Yeah.
Whereas, finally, during the final fight with Dimple, his outer jacket gets torn, and Dimple sees the monkey shirt. He's like, "What are you wearing? What is that? That's weird and dumb." It's like, you're the first person who's been honest with me about this. You feel comfortable feeling honest with me, sharing your opinions. Mm-hmm. He's like, "No, what? No, I want to fight you now."
Yeah, that was a good scene. But yeah, because that's true. It's not just like being constant. You can be affirmed by somebody in their honesty, not necessarily being like coddled.
Affirmation is not the same as compliments.
Mm-hmm.
Or lack of criticism.
Yep.
Because you can have affirming criticism.
Mm-hmm. In fact, it's quite needed.
When it's needed, it's needed.
Yep. So that was kind of an interesting little, like that stuck out to me. Like it was like, played for laughs and stuff. It was actually like a substantial like piece of the puzzle.
Had a character moment
there's a lot of things that ride that line in this show. Played for laughs, but has some depth to it.
It said some, like the monologues about belief and things like that, I thought were, I don't know, kind of like Evangelion trying to say something intelligent and then just being confusing.
If you believe something hard enough, that something becomes like a real thing of its own, doesn't it, Bob? Kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where perhaps that could be like, that's all Dimple's affirmation is. He's believing hard enough that people love him.
Sure.
That it feels like it's something that's real to him.
Mm-hmm.
He feels like people like him. He feels like he's accepted and loved, but he's not actually.
It's that force he is able to channel and build an exterior shell that makes him really buff and cool and golden.
But ultimately, it's an exterior shell that isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's saying something about religion and what people believe, but also it could point to his
kind of projection by him.
Projection, yeah, because people with that kind of mindset want to project sometimes.
And are kind of have sort of a megalomania.
Megalomania?
Megalomania, yeah.
Like, I'm not sure what megamania is, and it's not.
Yeah.
There's no sans.
No.
It's Mega Man Megalovania.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's got to be a thing that exists somewhere on the YouTube.
Probably.
More than likely. Have we more or less covered the stuff we liked then at this stage?
We covered like some of the big things and what it was about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So, truth. What truths can we find in Mob Psycho Season 3?
When you're disintegrated, you will end up hurting people.
When you're disintegrated, you will disintegrate. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm sort of a history buff war nerd, so I've listened to like a lot of podcasts with like veterans, and that point about trauma bringing out, previous like anger and other things that weren't addressed seems to be a theme, because it's not just the traumatic event they experience, like in war or what have you, like in the PTSD they suffer. A lot of it is bringing to the fore all these other issues they have, like, unresolved family issues, addiction, different things, just like not knowing how to process anger, things like that will come out, not always as a result, not always just from the traumatic event they experienced, but it just brings that out into the forefront. Because
it
they
takes down all of the barriers that have been built up around those things.
Yeah.
You get enough pressure under in a jar. You bottle things up. There's a lot of pressure in that bottle. Mm-hmm. Something's going to shatter.
Yep. And I think there's probably examples in our lives that we've seen people or experienced to a degree ourselves, where it's like when the parts of yourself are talking to each other, you're much more resilient. It's not like everything, like you're immune from trauma or from stress or sorrow or anything like that. But those things are much less destructive when you can kind of roll with the punches and let them
say to you what they're trying to say to you.
It's like, okay, this is making me upset right now.
When you don't like it, sorrow is unpleasant, but it's really, really important for us.
You have to recognize, and
when someone you love dies, it's good that you feel sorrowful about that.
Mm-hmm.
And to not let yourself feel sorrowful about that is doing yourself a disservice. It's not letting yourself recognize how much you loved that person and how much you miss them now that they're gone.
When somebody subjects you to like a moral injury of some sort, you should be angry, because that is moving you to seek justice. For example,
you need to give these emotions the time to speak. You need to give them an outlet, or else they're going to build up pressure. Then it all comes out at the same time in kind of something explosive and that's going to hurt people and yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's about giving everything the time they need to be understood and be felt. Mm-hmm. And because people need to be understood, people need to be felt. It is a biological need as well as a mental health need.
Mm-hmm. And allow those things to move you to the ends that they're supposed to. When you feel angry about something that's moving you to seek justice, you actually listen to that and you go and have a conflict about something. Like, you move towards a resolution. You move towards a state of things that is more agreeable and more just to you, and prevents that further injustice from building. You have to listen to those things because they just accumulate and continue to build and exponentially grow. Mm-hmm. And it only ever gets worse if you don't let them speak, because they don't move you to resolve the things that are causing them in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, leaving things resolved is... leaving things unresolved is...
Goodness. Unless there's any other truths we wanted to hit.
That was the main themes.
Yeah.
That's the main stuff.
Cool. Yeah, what is good in Mob Psycho?
Reagan continues to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, now that he has admitted his shortcomings to Mob at the end, the one like thing holding him back from being like a really good guy, he's working through that.
What's interesting is that he learns by making himself vulnerable, people don't just abandon him, which was almost like kind of a fear he has, where it's like, unless he puts up this facade, people will not want to stick around. But Mob has known the whole time he's a fraud, but wants to be friends with Reagan and like learn from him, still appreciates him as a person. And like the number of people Reagan becomes friends with at the end of the series, like they all show up for his birthday, to celebrate him, when he didn't have to manipulate them into doing that or anything like that. Like that vulnerability allows more receptivity for him.
He put up a front, and he was afraid people only made friends with that front.
Mm-hmm.
But no, because he's a good guy at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he'll exaggerate his abilities.
Yep.
He's ultimately, he wants what's best for Mob. He's a good mentor to Mob. Doesn't always practice what he preaches, but at the end, he comes around to it.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, like, you got all of Mob's friends. He's got a good support group. The Body Improvement Club is a bunch of bros to him.
Mm-hmm.
And the friends in the Alien UFO Club, they're earnest and trying their best to be good friends to each other, even though they don't always know how. And then they get abducted by aliens because that's good.
It trips on acid and becomes the king. On space acid.
So
Maybe not related to the goodness portion, but I remember the rich guy samurai that comes around to fight. What was he was trying to fight?
there's like something in the haunted house they made for the student school festival or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that popped into that occurred to me. They're fighting Pose. I think wasn't it something like that? Or that's what it made me think of.
Like from Zelda?
Yeah,
Like the lantern dudes?
yeah,
Something like that. I don't know. There was ghosts.
yep. Anyway, other good things. Yeah, Mob's friends, and Mob himself, despite the issues he's experiencing internally, he wants to be a good person to those around him.
Mm-hmm.
And in this season, compared to the previous two, he's more outgoing. Despite like the things he has unresolved going on inside. He's making an earnest effort to become a more well-rounded person. He's in the Body Improvement Club. He's investing time in his friends and helping them out with things. He's got a pretty good relationship with his younger brother, who, there's like a whole thing in the first two seasons where like
he really resented his older brother for having psychic powers and stuff. And feeling like he can't measure up, but then getting psychic boosting.
It's Ritsu, right?
Yep, that's Ritsu.
Yeah, Ritsu. And Ritsu is also good in this second season. Looking out for Mob and recognizing when there's something not right with him and trying to help him out. And he sort of recognizes early that something's about to break in Mob before Mob does. And recognizes it right away when the dam does burst and Mob explodes.
So yeah, friendship and integration are the good things.
Beauty. Or unless was...
No, it's just like, because really, it takes relationship and affirmation. You need relationship to to be affirmed properly. And yeah.
Because it is in relationship we find our identity.
It is hidden through another.
Yeah. And it's interesting too that, as with a lot of Japanese shows, like middle school is like that sort of age range where you're trying to formulate form your
You're
identity.
trying to figure yourself out.
So it's an app's choice of setting.
It's a coming of age story.
Beauty. When we talked about the animation, again, pretty great in this, minus a couple of aberrations.
Weird episodes.
Yeah.
But like the intro is once again another banger. It's they're 3 for 3 on this. The fight scenes are fun. And the art direction in this show, it continues to be delightfully unhinged. There's like just when Mob's feeling overconfident, the handsome Squidward mewing face.
Yeah.
he has. It's just like such a stark difference. It's like, my goodness, you're full of yourself.
Yeah. There's a lot of visual comedy.
A lot of visual comedy.
Like in I forget which season it was, but where like somebody was pointing out, I think it was, what was the name of the girl he likes?
Tsubomi.
Somebody points that out to him. He's like, "What? No!" And tries to walk out of the room and hits the door, like the door frame on the way out.
And like every time Mob is looking at Tsubomi, she's like got her 2 friends, but they're like heads are replaced by bell peppers whenever he's looking at them because he's not paying attention to the other women. They're just kind of
Scenery,
set pieces for
yeah,
her.
yeah, window
And
dressing.
Tsubomi is the only character with stereotypical anime girl eyes.
Yeah, actually, that's right.
Most other people just have dots for eyes, but
Like Mob does, yeah.
It's
That is
like-
a good point.
It's like purposefully inconsistent with its art style to like just be quirky, but also
Like
direct your
illustrate.
attention and illustrate characters and their dynamics. That's great.
It's clever usage and very aware use of the medium and art style. Yeah, that's and
crazy psychic power fight,
yeah.
always a highlight.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
those are always fun. I do enjoy that. There's something really hype about, dialing up to 100 and then, there's moments in the show where like he dials up to 100 and then comes back down, like, with Dimple, for example, but there's just like, when he gets hit by the car and everything, he just goes off. You're just like, oh.
And then the imagery used when Mob's talking to himself
Yeah.
inside his brain, how one's like a shadow figure, but then he's like real, but then like he shatters and the pieces are reorganizing, and it's like, I'm still you. You're the one being repressed now, and it's the framing of that, the art choice is just really fun, really cool.
Yep.
So yeah, it continues to be the beauty is self-evident. It's good.
Yeah.
It's cool stuff.
There was a lot of craftsmanship and artistry that went into the creation of this show
Yes.
on every level.
And just it's very unique. It's got its own style. I mean, obviously, it's not that dissimilar to One Punch Man because it's the same artist, but like it's distinct and characterful.
Unity, what brings it all together?
Integration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's
It's about psychic powers.
as a metaphor for emotions.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Because both are good. Like the psychic powers, he has his psychic powers are good.
Your emotions aren't
But-
this thing inside of you. They are part of you.
But the thing is, when his emotions aren't managed well, when they're overmanaged, when they're not allowed the time to, he bottles it up. His psychic powers similarly become something very bad and hurtful, when usually they are very good and very helpful.
And Mob sort of realizes, and getting rejected by Tsubomi, like sort of recognize, like, oh, I feel sad right now. It's like, but I should feel sad. That means it's I'm processing this properly. Little moments like that. Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. I don't have anything else to add. That was a pretty good discussion. It's almost like this whole thing we've been doing in our men's group has sort of been led us perfectly into the discussion for this episode. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Thank you for listening. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. You can email us at platingpapers@gmail.com with any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, or suggestions for future episodes. Yeah, and you can catch us in the next episode when we get there. So, yeah, we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.